Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Peters. I'm a faculty member at the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, and what I'm going to talk about today is how to compute and understand the underrepresentation of certain students in your gifted and talented program. So what we're going to talk about is literally how to find the data on which students, which student racial ethnic groups, student disability groups, English language learners are or are not proportionally represented in your gifted and talented program. So before we jump into the Office of Civil Rights data collection, we need to talk about the metric that we're going to use. That's what's on this page right here. It's called the Representation Index. And this handout is meant to walk you through absolutely everything. So if you weren't listening to me right now, hopefully you could take this handout and duplicate everything I'm talking about. So I'm going to go back and forth a little bit between this handout and the actual website. But all a representation index is the ratio of how much a group is represented in your gifted population to how much it's represented in your overall K-12 or K-8 school population. So the example I have here is, let's pretend that your gifted or high ability population is 14% African American. However, your district is 25% African American, so we just take 14 over 28, and that gives us a representation index of 0.5. And just to give you a little bit of a metric, it should be kind of intuitive, but 1.0 means they are perfectly represented. So a group is represented as often in your gifted population as it is in your K-12 population. 0.5 would mean that they are half as represented, and a number above 1.0 means they are disproportionately over-represented. So 2.0 would mean the particular population is represented twice as often in your gifted population as in the general K-12 population. Now I want to be really careful. We're just talking about a ratio here. We're not saying what should be. So obviously we would like to see something close to proportionality for all groups. We don't want groups to be systematically underrepresented, but that might be unrealistic depending on what your population is. Perhaps there is a reason that English language learners aren't as represented right now, because they wouldn't benefit from the particular service that you're examining. But if that's the case, we should probably be expanding our services. So I just want to put a plug in here for saying 1.0 for every group shouldn't be seen as like the only metric of goodness. It's a little more complicated than that. The reason you might look at these data as a point to start having a conversation about why this is happening. So that's our RI. 1.0 is perfect, less than 1.0 means underrepresented, more than 1.0 means overrepresented. And then if you scroll down here, it's a little worksheet, so if you can do this on your own or do this with staff, then right here, this is where it walks you through how to use the website. So I'm just going to go to the Office of Civil Rights. Well, actually, first I'm just going to go to Google. I'm not even going to go to a website. I'm just going to show you what I do. So I just type OCR data for Office of Civil Rights Data Collection. That's how I get there. I don't remember the link. Civil Rights Data Collection. That's what we're headed to. Then the first thing you're going to look for, again, I'll switch back to the handout for a second. Hopefully it looks like this. The first thing you're going to do is click on School and District Search. School and District Search right here. Then you have to make a choice. Life is about choices. You have to decide if you want to look for one school or if you would like to look for an entire district. I'm going to look at an entire district. And since I live right by Madison, Wisconsin, I'm going to put Madison in here. I wouldn't suggest just searching for Madison in the whole country since there are a lot of James Madison high schools. So I would scroll down to the bottom here. We're a lot of James Madison school districts. And I'm going to put in Wisconsin to kind of limit my results a little bit. So I'm searching for any district with the name of Madison in Wisconsin. Lo and behold, how convenient, there's only one. And if you want to make sure that's yours, you can say, oh yes, that is a big district, 27,000, that is my district, that's where I'm going to look. So again, just to switch over to the handout, choose if you want school or district, scroll down, you have to decide what you want to type in here. In this case, I searched for Wayne Township, different school, it doesn't matter. So here I got my Madison School District. I'm going to click on there, and up will pop the entire overview page for the school district. Again, this is available for any school district in the country. It's also available for any school in the country. So look up your kid's school, where you work, doesn't matter. And this is the whole overview. It's all about the racial, ethnic demographics of your district. Now, I should say, I didn't select this because it was automatic. These data are always old. They're always about 2 years old. So right now, we're looking at data for the 2015-16 school year. The next round will be 2 years after that, so it'll be 17-18 school year, and that probably won't be out, again, for about 2 years after that collection. So it's always behind. That's just how it is. Takes them a while to get all those data together. 100,000 or some school districts, it takes a lot, or schools rather. So if you scroll down, this is all just basic demographics. But if we want to get to the stuff that we're interested in for gifted ed, the first thing on this main page is right here. It's not as gifted ed related as you might think. I mean, it has this overview. Got the district enrollment and the racial ethnic breakdown here. So right away visually, without even computing any representation index or anything, you can compare the district's enrollment to the gifted and talented enrollment. So without computing any data whatsoever, we can see Caucasian students, European American students are overrepresented, by about somewhere around half, a little bit less. You can see we've got 2 or more races, 7.8 to 9, so a little bit underrepresented. You can see Hispanic, 8.8 in the gifted versus 20% in the overall. So again, they're underrepresented. African Americans, 6.7 here versus 18 here, underrepresented. So we can use these numbers right here and compute the representation indices for all those populations. We literally have to go no farther. We also have here Algebra 1 enrollment. We don't often think of this as gifted ed, but enrolled in Algebra 1 as an 8th grader is kind of an advanced learning option. So if you want to look at the secondary level, maybe your district doesn't do really gifted at the secondary level, but you can look at early classes like this, like Algebra 1. If we also scroll down a little bit more, you can see calculus, physics, and chemistry. Again, thinking about what does gifted actually mean at the high school level? What's our enrollment in advanced course options at the high school level, even if we don't call it gifted? So again, you can compare the district here to these three these are considered college marker classes by OCR, and you can look at disproportionality that way. A lot of other interesting data on here about suspensions, expulsions. OCR collects a lot of data. But once you look at these things, this is on the main page where you first land once you click on a district. There's also a little hidden spot over here on the right. So it's right next to the preschool and district enrollment. You can see gifted and talented enrollment. If you click on that, you get a specific page relative to gifted and talented education. So this is something we just saw in those pie charts, but now they're right next to each other. So again, we've got the students in the category, which is gifted. So the district's got 600 gifted kids in a district of 27,000. You can see there, this bar in the gifted is larger than this bar in the enrollment, so we know Caucasian students are overrepresented. You got these 2 or more racial groups there that are pretty close, but then you can also see our 2 main African American and Hispanic groups are underrepresented. On this page, though, you can also look at sex. So you can see that just slightly males are underrepresented. We don't usually look at that often. You can also look at gender breakdown by racial ethnic group. You also have limited English proficiency. So on this page, if the bars align, that's perfect proportionality. These bars do not align. You've got about a third as well represented limited English proficient students in gifted ed as they are in the overall district population. So they are underrepresented. Again, you can see the breakdown by gender for limited English proficient or for sex. And then we have disability groups as well. So these are students that are concurrently identified as limited English proficient and also gifted. So limited English proficient is 14% of the district. Limited English proficient identified as gifted is only 3.5. So you got quite a bit of underrepresentation there. And you can see the sex breakdown there as well. So on this page alone, you can look at the racial ethnic proportionality, sex proportionality, limited English proficiency proportionality, and disability proportionality of the particular district. You can also get this exact same report for a single school. I just happened to look at it for a single district. You'll note what is not on here is income. So looking at underrepresentation by poverty rate, that's because poverty, low-income students are not considered like discriminated against classes of people, so they don't qualify under OCR, so they don't collect data on those kids. So OCR does not provide you those data, but it is worth pointing out that there is no reason you can only look at this kind of proportionality with OCR data. You could do this with your own in-house district data. So take the racial ethnic breakdown using your 2018 or 2019 numbers and compare it to district enrollment. I don't have those data, but you do. So you can actually look at that racial ethnic proportionality. You can look at your language status. You can get into a lot more detail than I can with this OCR site. The nice part about this OCR site is it is available for every single school district in the country. They don't have to have special software. They don't have to have any kind of special test. It's there. It's based on their own identification procedures. We have no idea how these kids were identified, but this is what they reported to the federal government, and they have to respond by law. They can't leave it out. Something like 99.8% of schools nationwide responded, but of course we have no idea how accurately they responded, how seriously they took it. Of course, there are all those limitations. Once you have this and what to do with this, it is a great starting point to start having conversations about why particular disproportionalities might exist and what we can do to mitigate them. If I go back to my handout real quick, something you'll see at the very top is this link. That link, if I click on it here, will take you to an open science website page that I have made, and it includes some information from a project that I worked on with my colleagues Marcia Gentry, Matt McBee, and Gil Whiting. And the thing that I'll just go to real quick on there is this article about demographic representation in gifted education. This is an article that should be coming out soon, if not by the time you read this, in Gifted Child Quarterly. And the reason I pull this up is because not only does it talk about national trends in all these data for underrepresentation, but towards the end it also lists some recommendations. I won't call them solutions, but they're recommendations. So things like, how will universal consideration or universal screening influence your identification? How do building norms influence your identification? What about things like young scholars or U-Stars, those proactive talent development opportunities early on in school? So I bring this up because once you look at these OCR data and want to know, okay, well, what do we do next? I'm just throwing this article up online at that link that's on the handout right here, in case you want to get some ideas for where to get started. And of course, there's a lot of people that are doing work in this area. I just throw this up here because it's kind of like a lit review of some programs that work. So again, going back to the handout, representation index 1.0 is proportionality if you want to look at some metrics. Go to the OCR data site, school district search, and you can choose then a school or a district if you want to look at your building or the entire district. Type in who you want, select the state. You can look at the year as well if you want to go back and look at past years. Click on the particular district you want. In this case, I was looking at Wayne Township in Indiana, or at least there I was. Scroll down and you've got all these data about gifted and talented enrollment broken down by race, ethnicity, broken down by LEP. You can see I did little calculations there, and also by disability status. And once you have those data, you can go to the website and start thinking about maybe what could you do to mitigate disproportionality in your program. So hopefully that is helpful. Best of luck to you. It's important work, diversifying your gifted ed program, and hopefully some of this can help you better reach students who are underrepresented. Good luck.